we have an understanding that there are going to be gaps and that we can't accomplish them, but we as local people, as local agencies, can make a difference to fill those gaps. That's why we're here to talk about that in just a second. Because sometimes we don't like what's happening in different spots and what programs are going. So if they're going to go that way, we're going to go this way and make something happen. And so that's why we're going to have this panel discussion here. And we have some great panelists Robin, I don't know how long your introductions are, but we're just going to give them a chance. And the purpose of the panel is that each of them will just talk a little bit about what their agency does, just briefly. And then we're going to see if you have questions. Now there's white cards on the tables that you can write out and we'll pick up. Just raise your card up and we'll grab it and I'll try and read that question. And as I mentioned, if you don't, I'm going to ask the questions. And so I think I'd rather hear yours that you may have based on the comments you've heard so far and what you hear from these agencies. So Robin, let's introduce our panelists.
Thank you. All these panelists have lived experience in scarcity, abundance, and sufficiency too. They serve our neighbors in need in a variety of ways. Don Tyne is a retired lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, Veteran Affairs Services Officer, and has been the director of Linn County Veteran Affairs for 15 years. Catherine Hafsey graduated cum laude with degrees in psychology and social work, including a minor in organizational management. Ms. Hafsey has held positions as house staff and also as house parent for several group homes. And she is also the current president of Peer Action Disability Support, PADS. Stephanie Gilbertson is mom of Andrea, a 44-year-old woman who is severely impacted by autism. And Ms. Gilbertson is a strong advocate for dignity, for people with disabilities. She's also a musician, a crafter, and longtime strong advocate for neighbors in need. Jim Federer was on the original team in November of 1994, establishing the Ecumenical Community Center and determining by a survey which programs would be most helpful to low-income people. He's a member of People's Unitarian Universalist Church and represents People's UU on the Ecumenical Community Center Foundation Board. Mr. Federer became the first president of Margaret Bach Housing and has served on both Ecumenical Community Center Board and the Margaret Bach Housing Board since their inception. This is his 11th year as president. Deneen Rushing, Willis Dady's Willis Dady Homeless Prevention Services longest term employee since 2006. Started as a student in criminal justice. Ms. Rushing has been Willis Dady's current shelter manager. She's filled a number of positions in her 12-year tenure there and is a wealth of knowledge about how best to assist some of our neighbors most in need. Marcus is a long-standing member of the Narcotics Anonymous since 1981. Marcus is fortunate enough to have been involved in the planning and seeding of Narcotics Anonymous groups in Cedar Rapids, Davenport, Dubuque, Iowa City, Muscatine, and Clinton. Also fortunate enough to participated in the beginning of the Iowa region of Narcotics Anonymous and helped edit the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous, which is equivalent to the AA Big Book. These panelists all are drum majors for justice. Just a salute to Dr. King. These folks are deeply committed and passionate and are in the realization that it is always the right time to do the right thing. Thank you all for being here. I'd like each of you to go ahead and give a quick synopsis of your work.
I'll start with Don now. First, pass it down.
I want to thank.
It's not on.
All right. Oh, hey, my voice changed. I'm Don Tynican, Director of Linn County Veteran Affairs. One of the things I want to emphasize, this is county government at work, so if all of you pay your taxes, this is what county government can do. Basically, I've been the Director of Linn County Veteran Affairs for 15 years, and we basically have 3 basic programs. One is our relief program, which helps our veterans that are struggling to find gainful employment, pay housing and utility bills, help pay for indigent burials, and assist them in getting other resources. The other part of our program is our compensation pension program, and that is where we file federal benefits for veterans that are injured or have diseases associated with their service in the military. Our #1 population is Vietnam veterans, and the herbicide exposure has 8 presumptive diseases associated with that. One of the reasons I don't have a display is Thursday we got a text that a unit was coming back from Afghanistan and they were doing a yellow ribbon at the DoubleTree, so I have one of my staff there with all my dog and pony stuff, so I'm pretty bare, but we're there to serve the veterans first. The other programs we do, of course, is we help a variety of things. For example, we help order records, we help enroll people in the VA healthcare system. We even do things such as help relatives find their deceased relatives' graves. For example, the latest project, I was helping a couple citizens locate some Civil War veterans' burial sites. So I guess we kind of do a little bit of everything, but we serve with a great deal of passion and dedication.
My name is Kat Hofsey, or Catherine Hofsey, and I'm the president of the board for Peer Action Disability Support. And basically, we do a lot of advocacy at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. And we do a lot of peer support. So if somebody has an issue with a newly acquired disability or an old disability, we kind of can help them work through issues as to where to get services and how to get services and that sort of thing. And I guess our most recent success is having the accessible parking spot on 3rd Avenue across the street from the Art Museum that has just been recently moved because we just didn't give up. But and the street department hates me probably. So we do a lot of gatherings, and we do have a peer support group that meets once a month, and we do just go out into the community and try to do accessible activities.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Steph Gilbertson, and I'm just here representing my daughter today. She's a long time CompuPlay client and advocate. And first, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her. She lives at home with us. She's 44. I'm going to tell her life in t-shirts. She has a lot of different causes, and these are just a couple of them. She's like a 110-pound little blonde, sweet-faced person with a mind of her own. Right, Jerry? Jerry had one of those too. One of her causes right now, she's nonverbal, and she mostly needs help with about everything. There's not much she can do on her own, but she's autistic and in there, quite bright, but doesn't have a lot of speech. So one of her current things is freedom of speech isn't for just the speaking. And there's a group that's headed by DJ Savarese down at the U of I, and he is also nonverbal. There was a special on PBS about his life called Deej, and I would recommend that you see that. It's pretty interesting. He went to college, did it all nonverbally, and with all of the computers and everything now, there are a lot of ways to communicate, thank God. And without CompuPlace, that would just be a whole heck of a lot harder. Her other t-shirt that I'm thinking of is her business. She has a little cottage business at home called Just Ducky Shredding. And because of her disability, she just doesn't fit in any holes or square. She's a square peg. So we pretty much had to help her start a business so that she had the dignity of work. And it also helps her communicate. And she started with a friend, and now we have 2 more friends. And it's growing a little bit, and it's the dignity of work, and they love working. So Just Ducky Shredding, if anybody's interested, they work for a reasonable amount. And Carl, I'm going to quote from the t-shirt she had on when I left. It's not biblical, but it's similar. She had a t-shirt that said, "Yesterday the devil whispered in my ear, you cannot withstand the storm. Today I whispered in the devil's ear, I'm a child of God, I'm a woman of faith, I am the storm." And I really like that, and that really is her. She has more courage than anybody that I've ever met, so it's great to represent her. She started at CompuPlace. Before it was CompuPlace, it was CompuPlay at the YWCA. And I don't even know how many years ago, the Y decided their mission changed and it needed to go somewhere else or die. And the ECCF at that time took it over, took it on, and it didn't have any money. They just saw something, and they have been faithful to CompuPlace ever since. Went from CompuPlay to CompuPlace at the old building. And it started out in 2 small rooms with donated computers. And one thing my daughter said about it at the time we had a little opening thing there, is she made a banner. And back then it was the old, pixelated banners. And I asked her to make one, and she came up with, "Grateful people like it here." And I thought she couldn't really say it any better than that. One of the problems as people get older, now she's 44, she's been out of school for a long time, is there aren't a lot of programs for you after you graduate. If you don't fit into some square peg or something, what do? You have an active mind, you want to learn more, you want to continue your life just like we all do. And CompuPlace is one of the very few places where you can go after you graduate and continue to learn to communicate and be challenged, learn new things. And I don't think there's not another program in the state like that. I know that. I don't think there are too many in the country. And I've talked to a lot of parents who have children that have just graduated. and I tell them about it, and it's been a godsend for some of them, and I very much appreciate the ECC for being faithful to it for all these years, because they truly are they're standing in a gap that no one else will stand in. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Janine Rushing, and I'm the shelter manager at the Willis Dady Shelter. We're actually located right across the street, so when you come out of the building, if you look across the street, that's where we are right there. We're currently going through some construction over there. We're renovating our current space, and so once that's completed, we'll have a bigger building. So at the Willis Dady Shelter, we can house up to 16 single men, and then we can house up to 4 families upstairs. And so our families would consist of any makeup of a family. So it could be a single mom with children, it could be a single dad with children, it could be an aunt with children or grandparents with children, so it's just any makeup of a family. So our clients typically stay about 30 days at our shelter. We do provide case management for them. Once clients do check in, it is mandatory that they meet with our case manager within 24 hours of them being at the shelter. That piece is really important because what we want to do when clients get to the shelter is that immediately we want to address whatever barriers that they may be experiencing. So if a client is there because they lost employment, or maybe there's a mental health illness happening there, or maybe there may be some form of substance abuse, whatever it is that brought them to the shelter, we definitely want to address it immediately. And then at that point, we would refer our clients to different agencies and services around town that can assist them with those barriers. Ultimately, our goal at Willis Dady with each individual that we work with is that they can address their barriers, they can obtain employment, and then they can move into stable housing. And so there are several other agencies that we work with, including ourselves, because recently, in the beginning of 2018, we were able to receive a small pot of money where we can provide first month's rent and deposit for clients. And so it actually is not just our clients, but just individuals in the community that are in need. And so we've been very successful with that and seen a lot of individuals get into permanent housing. We also provide prevention, so we have a prevention case manager, and that's another piece that we were able to start about 2 years ago. And so basically, this case manager will go out to the community and meet with individuals before they become homeless. So let's say there may be a family that's behind on rent. Maybe they lost their employment, but they just got a job. What our prevention case manager can do is maybe bridge that gap, that connection with the tenant and the landlord by talking to the landlord and maybe establishing some form of rental payment where they can pay it back, an extra $50 each time, or being able to find another agency that may be able to assist them with their rental payment. So basically she's trying to prevent the family or individual from becoming homeless. We also have an outreach worker that actually goes out into the community and meets with individuals that are literally sleeping on the streets. And so at that point, she would give them different resources and information on shelters that they can go to, or connect them with different resources that can help them with whatever they're in need of. So that's just a little bit of what we do. Thank you. I don't know. Okay.
Well, Margaret Bott provides some very, very good housing right down 3rd Avenue here in 10th Street. And we were set up as a 501c3 nonprofit in the year 2000 to provide single room occupancy to very low income individuals, single adults who are men or women. And I'm proud to say today, after many capital improvements over the last 18 years, we have a nice facility. We do survive today, though, by asking for rent from our tenants. We have 36 individuals who called Margaret Bach their home. Like I say, they're all single adults. We have 33 men and 3 women. And we survive by their rent. And also we get some donation from St. Luke's Hospital for using our parking space on one side of our building. Now you might ask, who are our tenants? That's the interesting question. And some come from homeless shelters like Willis Beatty, and often they need some financial assistance when they come to us for the first month's rent plus a deposit. And we thank Waypoint Services in town because they will step in and help those people who come to us and need that deposit and that first month's rent. A few come from prisons and they have a parole officer that they have to report to. Also, several of our tenants are handicapped and they live on Social Security disability. Others simply come to us because they couldn't afford the rent as to where they were living. Most of our tenants have a job, but some become unemployed while they are with us, and then they could be short on rent. And then we can thank the Linn County General Assistance that they step in and provide some help for people who are temporarily unemployed. As Scott Olson said earlier, in January of 2017, Margaret Bach received the deed for our building, so from the ECCF. So but we still continue to have a very, very close relationship with the ECCF. There are 6 of us who are on both boards, and Robin and I are 2 of those 6. I won't mention all the names here. And the Ecumenical Center also provides important clerical help for us. And Margaret Bach, in turn, donates $1,000 to the Ecumenical Community Center each month from our savings, from our collecting rent and after expenses. In closing, I would consider that all of our tenants are success stories. They appreciate our facility and our management very much. The average stay at our facility is about 3 years. Some stay much longer and some much less. I would like to point out our property manager and vice president of the board is Mike Williams. Put your hand up. And sitting next to him is Pam Bach, our secretary on our board. And both of them would love to meet you after this forum over at the back table, way over there. Pam has a very nice display of some pictures showing tenant activities, and then we have our own brochure like this that just you're welcome to take with you. And that's all I have.
My name is Marcus. Thank you for everybody coming out today. It's been really enjoyable just to listen to what's been said. What we're really talking about here is the struggle that goes on behind closed doors in our communities that we don't always see. There's a lot of grief out there with people sometimes, homelessness, needs. What Narcotics Anonymous specifically deals with is substance abuse. And I'm sure you've all read the headlines and seen the newspaper articles lately about the cannabis across the country, the opiate epidemic, and so on. A lot of people aren't that familiar with Narcotics Anonymous because it's nonprofit and it's anonymous. So today, I'm here to tell you we are alive and well. We've been in Cedar Rapids for 37 years now. Our main goal is just to bring need and a loving hug and an embrace the people that are in trouble with substance abuse. That's what we do. I was thinking about that during this hour that we've spent so far together, and they say that at least a dozen people have died from this disease already within the hour. The mother of my firstborn child died of a heroin overdose. So it is very much needed in the community. You have pamphlets that I put on your tables. Those are meeting lists that let you know where we're at. We are grateful to the ECC that we are one of their tenants. We specialize basically, we have world services, and a lot of people don't know that we're that organized. We probably sell anywhere in the neighborhood of $7 million to $10 million in literature sales to people seeking help yearly. I think sometimes in Iowa, we're very sheltered from the reality of some of the realities within the country. I recently had a friend from California, and he was trying to take pictures. He wanted to get his picture next to Arnold Starr on the Walk of Hollywood Hall of Fame stuff, and he had to literally shoo away the homeless people just to take his picture. People were just literally sleeping on the streets. So we're very insulated in Iowa, but these problems are very real. And I'm glad that everybody has come here today. Thank you very much for hosting this.
Thank you, Marcus. I don't know whether those other microphones can we get them cranking here. Is there a button on the bottom or?
It's working now.
Okay, good. So I'll keep mine here. So we have budgeted about 15 to 20 minutes for questions. If you don't have any, I've got a couple I want to ask. We got one here. All right. Thank you very much. This question, an excellent question. What is the greatest need besides housing of people coming out of prison? What is the greatest need besides housing of people coming out of prison? Who would like to answer that?
I guess I can kind of talk about that because we do get some clients that come to the shelter and they're newly coming out of correctional facilities. I think one of the main things that they need, of course, they do need housing, like was mentioned, along with a job, but also I think that they need that support. They need the community, the support of the community. You know, when someone has committed a crime and then they get sentenced and they go to jail and then they get out, you know, it's just acknowledging that they have, you know, did their time, and at this point they're trying to start their life off, you know, with a clean slate. So just having that positive support within the community without judging that individual. I know that there is a program in town, it's called the RISE program, which has been very helpful in assisting individuals with bus tickets, with getting them clothing for job interviews, with just being, like I said, that positive support within the community as they work towards stability.
A really quick answer to that. People coming out of prison often need a current ID, and we do that at Helping Hands Ministry.
And let me just add one piece. A lot of times they need an advocate. When I was at the commission, we dealt with a lot of individuals not being able to get housing because once they put that they were once incarcerated, landlords don't look their way. They end up wearing a scarlet letter for the rest of their lives. So for the ones who are serious and want to turn their lives around, they need advocates, people that will vouch for them to get employment and housing, because without those two things, they end up right back where they started. Because if you can't earn a living, you either have to do crime or you end up living on the street. So a lot of times they just need individuals to say, I'll advocate on your behalf.
Linn County Veteran Affairs belongs to two programs, Veterans Improvement Program, where we work closely with probation officers for veterans that are coming out of prison. We make sure they get their benefits reinstated, and as with the other panelists, we work closely with getting them employment and housing. The other program Linn County Veteran Affairs is involved in is the Stepping Up program. It is also another network that is trying to work with those that have been incarcerated and making sure they're welcome into the community, get housing, and have a hand up in getting a fresh start, so there isn't, they don't recycle back into the prison system.
Thank you, Don. This next question, any of you can answer on this one, I think, and this is one I had on my list. What would you say is the most critical need facing the people you are trying to help? The most critical need. Just work our way down the panel here.
I would say for our executive staffing, our niche is diverse individuals, people from diverse backgrounds, and also military. They just need access. A lot of times, if you want to go to a new job or a new industry, if you don't know that opportunity exists, how are you going to get employed? And a lot of times for the employers, they're looking at diversity and inclusion, and they have lack of access to the populations that they're trying to reach. So for us, it's just getting access.
For the veterans in all across the United States, basically, really to understand that their military training should be a step up in getting employment, and also not to basically profile veterans. We get a lot of veterans. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a complicated mental health disorder. It can come on any time, but just because somebody's being treated for post-traumatic stress disorder doesn't mean they're employable.
I would say for the disability community, transportation is the number one issue, because without transportation, you can't go to school, you can't get a job, you can't participate in the community.
Yeah. The one I would think for my daughter would be jobs. The whole Henry's Turkey Farm thing was really bad. Those gentlemen that were not getting paid minimum wage. Well, that changed, and they should have been paid minimum wage, obviously. But in fixing that, they broke the other side of the coin, where if you can't work as fast as an able-bodied person, you still need to be paid minimum wage. Well, there aren't too many employers who can afford to do that, unfortunately. So in our daughter's case, we started a business for her, and it's piecework. That's how we can get around that. She can't work fast enough, but she deserves the dignity of work, and so do all of her friends that have more significant disabilities. So that needs to be turned around.
I think for the clients that we work with, of course, when it comes to the shelter, they are experiencing homelessness. So I would say what they're most in need of would be employment and housing. Like I mentioned before, we also address clients' barriers also, because that's very important to do that, because even if someone is able to get a job or get housing, if those barriers that cause them to become homeless have not been addressed, then they can end up right back in that situation. And that's definitely not what we want for our clients. So just us working together as an agency and with other people in the community, we're able to address those barriers so they can be successful in housing and employment.
Well, we provide housing, and if they have some financial trouble, of course, we want to work with them and a payback plan if necessary, and also that we have places like Linn County and Waypoint to help out. I know keeping the job or getting a different job is very important. And we try also to refer them to other places for help, like the Ecumenical Center too. It provides a lot of good referrals there too.
I think for Narcotics Anonymous, people come to us from many walks of life. We get bankers, we get former hippies, we get everything in between. And I think everybody struggles with all of these issues. Addiction will strip people of their resources, it'll strip them of their health, and ultimately their lives if they don't get help. So this is a really good thing going on today. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. The next question, somebody's very creative here. This question goes back to why the Ecumenical Center started in 1996. Our church has requests for emergency financial assistance regularly. Is there a central Wizard of Oz to whom we can refer Dorothy, Toto, the Lion, Tin Man, and the Scarecrow? Are there really double dippers working our system? Is that a problem that you see in your agency, where they go from agency to agency to get the resources and move to the next agency? Anybody want to answer that one?
Sometimes it really does take all of us, even just to help one individual or one family. That's part of why we have this panel here today. And I'm more than happy for them to also answer this, but it really is working together. issues they have.
How I look at it, if you have an individual or family going from one agency to another and trying to help, get as much help as possible, that's really more a sign of there's other issues we haven't identified and we need to clarify. And there again, you get into profiling. Most poor people are not out to get the system or get a free ride or get a free Social Security check. They truly would rather be working or contributing to our community some way or another. I even work with, when I have a veteran that is so severely injured because of his service to our country, one of the things I do is, okay, you're not employable, but you can contribute to the community by volunteering. And there is a lot of veterans out there through that resource that go out there. So when I see that, I raise a flag and try to find out exactly why do they feel so insecure that they go from one agency to the other to try to get some assistance, and we work together to get the answer.
Anybody else want to answer that one at all?
I think John made a good point with what he said. If we do have an individual or a family that's going from one agency to the next agency, then it could be a red flag there that there's something else going on. But also I think that we have so many different services in town that assist clients when they're really in need, and so a lot of times you may have to go to different agencies to be able to get what it is that you need. And it may be something like you're going to Fish and Loaves, to get food for your family for the week or for the month, and then you may come to Willis Dady because you guys need somewhere to stay, or you may go to Helping Hands to get bus tickets. Do you guys still do bus? Okay. You may have to go to Helping Hands to get bus tickets. So sometimes it takes going to these different places to be able to feel the need of what an individual or a family is in need of.
Good answer there. One of the questions we have, I just wanted to say that the Ecumenical Center could easily become your church's Wizard of Oz. We work with lots of different churches, and 30-some churches, and some ask us to provide that service, and we will, no matter where they are in the community, we will team with them. And so, coming back here from the front here.
Got your questions way back there.
We got two back there? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, okay, here we go. And this is toward housing. I think I heard recently that with the closing of Mission of Hope, our city no longer has any homeless shelter where a person on the sex offender registry can get a shelter. Are there any plans to create a homeless shelter whose people can be, that they can be received in? So this is a housing question, yes.
I can only speak for us, for Willis Dady. What I will say is that we do not house sex offenders. The reason why that is because we do house up to 4 families upstairs, so we always have children. Every last one of our families have children at the shelter 365 days of the year. And so because of that, we do not house sex offenders. So I can't speak on if there's any talk about trying to open up a shelter specifically for sex offenders, but I just know that we're not able to house sex offenders.
Jim?
Well, at Margaret Bach, we do have some sex offenders that are our tenants, but I'm pretty sure they have a parole officer assigned to them, and usually if you have a parole officer assigned to you, you're probably one of our best tenants. Things are pretty well under control. So, yeah, we don't have a lot of room, for maybe there's a limit too on how many we are allowed to have, and I don't want to say what that is, but we do have some.
Anybody else like to comment on that question? I know that's come up before, and it's a very difficult issue. Yes?
I do have a comment, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
My name is Jim, and I'm actually a volunteer with the Rice program. And one of the biggest fears that people coming out of prison and jail have is, where am I going to sleep tonight? And right now, all the shelters are full, I believe. and it's, you know, winter is coming on, and you talk with people who are due to get out of jail in the next couple of months, they are scared, literally scared. And so, and there is a plan to open an overflow shelter where they'll accept everybody, I believe. But it's a critical need. Right now, we have people living in, sleeping overnight in parking garages and wherever else they can find.
Thank you, Jack. That was a good comment, because I know that, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. That is a good point that you made. I guess I didn't speak about that, but for the past 3 years, we have had something called the Winter Overflow Shelter, and so and we hope to open again this year. But we're currently looking for a space to be able to have the Winter Overflow Shelter, but. Basically, it is a space and a place where individuals can go that need a place to sleep at night. I believe that they arrive at 8 o'clock p.m. and they stay until 8 o'clock a.m. and we can provide shelter for sex offenders as well. So when that is up and running, that will be another place that they can go, at least for the winter months. So we're hoping to open soon once we find a place.
And every year, they've had to rotate locations, and the goal is to stay as close to the core and bus routes as possible. And so I know I've been helping Phoebe try to find clients that have empty buildings, and there are issues, of course, relating to where they're located and if they have adequate toilets and are secure and safe spaces for people. Because what was your final count last year in the facility on the 33rd? How many?
So I actually have statistics here. So for last winter, the total nights open for the winter overflow shelter was 122 nights. The average served per night was about 39 individuals. And so the total people served for the entire time that was open last winter were 470 individuals. 3% were children, 31% were women, and 60% were men.
Yeah, thank you. Very good. You came prepared.
Yeah, I tried.
Right. Very impressive. And I think that one of the things that I'm an architect, as some of you know, and some of the recent forums and programs for architects have been around designing housing for the homeless. And I think the comment was made, we are fortunate that in the sense that we do have an issue, but compared in scope to many cities, and I'll give that example here, and I've got a magazine that just came with some new homeless designs that we just reestablished the Affordable Housing Commission. That's one of their efforts, is to get that type of housing permanently built, not temporarily built, so we know we have a place. But the studies I saw, a recent presentation from architects, 2 architects from California, that showed new designs, beautiful buildings in California. They do open air, and they don't have the cold issues that we do. But they have in Los Angeles County 55,000 homeless. Los Angeles County, 55,000, and that's on the streets. We were just talking about on that one part. In our last count in Cedar Rapids, we were at the last count. We know that doesn't count everybody. We were just around 300 that were counted that were out, not in a shelter. Now we have people that are in shelters. This is stuff, but we know there's more than that. But the point being is we have an issue that is manageable in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, so that we can provide those services. We've just got, this is where neighbors helping neighbors can make a difference. This is something we can solve, I think, by working together, sharing resources, and see if we can find that right building or that right design where we can create a decent, safe, clean, permanent location for people with homeless needs, both in the winter and year-round. And it's hard to do, as Willis Davey knows. It takes a lot of time to raise money, and we just got to find a way to make it happen a little faster. So any other questions? We're just about out of our time here before we go to the next little stage and have a little networking time, because we promised we'd end by 4 o'clock, and we will do that. But we do want to have networking time where you can look at the displays and everything here. Any other final questions? We had some good ones. And remember, ECCF is the Wizard of Oz. Just remember that. That's the statement. We got one more? Okay. You want to just ask? Go ahead and ask. Yeah.
I'm wondering if people who are undocumented immigrants have additional barriers to finding services, and are services readily available to those people, or is it not that much of an issue here? We just moved here from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So that's part of what prompts this question.
Yeah, it's a great question, thank you. Anybody like to, yeah?
Yep, that actually is a good question. What I do know is that currently we do have a family that is from the Congo, and so they are here. We work closely with Catherine McCulley because they do work with individuals and trying to help them get their immigration papers together, and trying to help them with the money for that and things along those lines. It is difficult because when they get here, they're not able to work a lot of the times. And just being able to work with other agencies and finding the resources to help them get into housing. That piece is, it has been difficult, I will say. But we do have a family that that was at the shelter, but they were able to get into housing, and we work with Waypoint to be able to do that. They were able to cover their rental payment for a certain amount of months. And so, unfortunately, I don't think that there's money to be able to do that for each family that comes here. So I think that they just take it case by case and just do what they can at the time. But that is a good question because we're seeing more and more individuals coming here from different countries.
And we do have a group on the west side, and I just got a mental blank on their name, but Rainbow, I'm trying to think of the group that does help immigrants, and we have a very large immigrant community here. Helps them get jobs, justice for our neighbors is one second, the one, yeah. And so we do have a good service there, and Catherine McCauley is looking at creating a new service for immigrants in housing. And I think we store furniture in the Ecumenical Center for that program. And so we're already a little part of it, and I think we're reading about that change of using the St. Luke's clinic or nursing home. It's got some issues that they have to resolve there, but part of those housing, I think, will be part of their immigrant program, as I understand it.
Yes, yeah.
And so they will hopefully have a very strong response to that. Any final questions? Time for one more before we head on to the last closing comments, and I think, any others? Great questions, thank you very much, and we tested our panel here.